Almost every autumn, every fall, we have a fun event here on the Bigshooterist channel called Shotgun Day. And we go over some new technology in shotguns, some new offerings that have come out in the last year, and maybe some interesting things from the NFA community that may not be as widely known. So we've been studying the Lynx 12 from SDS Imports recently, and in looking at some of the questions, I noticed some of the questions are kind of entry-level questions. People that are interested in shotguns, maybe it's a new interest, or maybe you've just never had a big interest in them until recently. So I'm going to the range. I want to answer a few basic questions, some things that you will be certain to know, and some things that maybe even if you've been a shotgun person for a while, you might not know. So there's a lot of talking in this one, and it is for the beginners of shotguns. So if you're newer to shotguns, this information might be helpful to you. I'm sure a lot of people watching already completely understand this and know it far better than I do, but because of the questions I get, I know that not everybody does, so we should talk about it a little bit. When we're talking about a shotgun, it's typically referred to as a gauge, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, and such, and newer people to shotguns tend to get confused as to what that means. This is what it means. The gauge of a shotgun, in this case a 12 gauge, we'll start with one that we know. A 12 gauge shotgun, what that means is it would take 12 spherical balls of lead, the same size as the bore, to equal 1 pound. That's where the gauge is determined. How many balls of lead, the same diameter as this tube, as the barrel, that equal 1 pound. With a 12 gauge shotgun, that takes 12 lead balls the same size to equal 1 pound. A 10 gauge shotgun, which is larger, would only take 10 balls of that diameter. So obviously the diameter has to be larger. Going in the other direction, a 20 gauge shotgun, it would take, the diameter is small enough so it would take 20 of these balls to equal 1 pound. That's where the gauge measurement comes from. While there are several different types of shotgun shells, all I'm going to touch upon for this one is lead, so we're all on the same page, the most common. There is lead, there is steel, there is bismuth, there are all kinds of different ones, but just to keep it easy, we'll talk about lead. And most of this applies to all of them, no matter what the shot type is. So shotgun shell, it's called a shotgun shell because the shell contains shot. All kinds of, in this case, lead balls, little lead balls, lead pellets. And with the shot, the higher number of the shell, you'll see number 2, number 5, number 8, 8.5, number 9. The higher the number, the smaller the pellets are, and the more pellets there are in the shell. So a number 8 would have a lot of really small pellets in it compared to a number 5, which the pellets are going to be larger, therefore there are going to be less of them. Another really common one is buckshot, and buckshot is the same way. Buckshot is larger than traditional shot. Double-aught buck is probably the most common one. I've got one here that I cut apart. It's actually one that I've been shooting today. It's an S&B. It's a 2 3/4 inch shell, and the size of the shells is just what it is. A 3-inch chamber is for a 3-inch shell. A 2 3/4 inch chamber is for a 2 3/4 inch shell. Today I've got 2 3/4 inch and some double-aught buck made by S&B. So we'll take this one apart and we'll look at what we have inside. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pellets. For contrast, I'm going to add some shot from a number 8 shell so you can see the difference in size. Now while there are less pellets in the buckshot, they're a lot heavier, they're a lot more dense, so they're going to travel a lot further, and each pellet individually is going to create a larger wound channel than compared to the smaller pellets. Smaller pellets you'd use for smaller game or wing type shooting, birds. When people talk about slugs, a slug is a slug of lead. Again, in this case, it is a single projectile, more like the traditional firearms that we're used to. It is one single projectile. There are rifled slugs, which actually have grooves and rifling cut into them to help stabilize them in flight, and there are sabot slugs, which are meant to be used with a rifled shotgun barrel. So it's important to know when you're buying slugs which type of barrel you have, so you know which you're going to get the best performance out of as well. So I hope that some of you found that helpful. It's hard when I have a camera on the other side of me and I want to reach you. The only way I get that feedback is from feedback that you leave, questions that you ask, comments that you leave, advice that you have for me, you educating me. So again, in going through those comments, there were a lot of people that were asking questions, enough of you, so I thought that it just might make sense to explain a little bit about shotguns. It's a field that's this wide, and you know, maybe I only know this much about it, but it's my honor to pass that on to you. So I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, please click like, share us with your friends in your vast social media universe. Subscribe to the channel, please, both on YouTube and on Full 30. Come over and visit us on Patreon, where we tend to do things a little bit earlier and do some behind the scenes stuff that we don't do on the other social media areas. And if you're someone that likes to follow every day what we're doing and you'd like some direct communication, Facebook is the one that we're on the most. Facebook.com/guntestvids. Until next time, have fun and be safe.